Now let's turn our attention to Oracle physical storage structures. Remember, the two halves of the Oracle are DBMS, the instance and the database refers to the physical file system object. First, we have the data files. These are binary files that contain the database data, your tables, your indexes, and so on. In other words, you can't open them up with a text editor. Next, we have the control file. The control file is also a binary object. This contains metadata concerning how the database is physically organized. Bottom line is, if something happens to your control file, you're not going to be able to start Oracle database. The database will just stall. So it's important to multiplex your control file, which means storing redundant copies of that small file on different disks. We've mentioned the online redo log several times. This is a record of SQL or SQL that have resulted in database data changes. And then we have the server parameter file. This is a binary file that stores the initialization parameters for your database. In other words, think of it as a registry if you're a Windows systems administrator, or if you're a Linux person, think of it as a conf file, a configuration file. And there's actually two versions, the binary file that Oracle consumes directly, and you can also use a text representation called an initialization parameter file. And there's different pros and cons to working with each of those files. They store the same data, it's just that they're accessed a little bit differently. And we'll talk about that in the next module, actually.